tells me about your word on Sundays. I never go, but tell them I'll go with them one day. They say you have the answers I've been longing for, but somehow I don't feel like I'm on one accord with you. I believe you have something for me alone. Humbly, Lord, how do I approach the throne? Cause all I have to offer, Lord, is it enough? I give you my trust. I heard you're a miracle worker, graceful healer for sinner. Can you take me in? Is there room for me? I have heard you dried the eyes of many, healed more hearts, have love for plenty. Can you take me in? Is there room for me? Is there room for me? Tell me, is there room for me? Is there room for me? Tell me, is there room? Is there room for me? Tell me, is there room? Hey, hey. Is there room for me? Oh, no. I heard how you saved Daniel from the lion's den and stayed with Jonah in the well he was within. I need the protection. I know I'm not worthy. I'm in a state of desperation, Lord, I need that mercy. I believe you have something for me alone. Humbly, Lord, how do I approach the throne? Cause all I have to offer, Lord, is it enough? I give you my trust. I heard you're a miracle worker, graceful healer for sinner. Can you take me in? Is there room for me? I have heard you dried the eyes of many, healed more hearts, have love for plenty. Can you take me in? Is there room for me? Is there room for me? Tell me, is there room for me? Is there room for me? Tell me, is there room? Is there room for me? Tell me, is there room? Hey, hey. Is there room for me? I heard you're a miracle worker, graceful healer for sinner. Can you take me in? Can you take me in? I heard you won't dry the eyes of many, heal more hearts, love for plenty. Can you take me in? Take me in. I heard you're a miracle worker, graceful healer for sinner. Can you take me in? Can you take me in? I heard you dry the eyes of many, heal my heart. Can you take me in? I heard you're a miracle worker, graceful healer for sinner. Can you take me in? Is there room for me? I have heard you dried the eyes of many, heal more hearts, love for plenty. Can you take me in? Is there room for me? Can you take me in? Is there room for me? Is there room for me? Can you take me in? Is there room for me? Is there room for me?
You're listening to Launch with Kim
and Dr. Newt
on Praise.fm.
Welcome to Launch with Kim and Dr. Hello, everyone. How are you? How are you? Post in the chat and tell me how you're doing today, how your day is.
Welcome. Thank you for logging
Welcome,
in.
Llewellyn Coleman Hope.
Please like and share. Share and like. What do you say? Which way you go? Like and
you
share.
can say it both ways.
You say it both ways?
Whatever way you want to say it.
It's not a left-handed way?
No, but if you would say it the left-handed way, it would be
share and like
instead of like and share. Well, hello, guys. Oh, my goodness. How's your day going? How has your day been?
My day's great. Thanks for asking.
You can answer absolutely. I'm talking to all who's listening. Anyone who has their ears
I'm listening.
and eyes on.
I want to hear what you have to say.
Well, good.
Tell me something.
Come getting somebody.
My big old baby New Year.
Baby New Year. Oh, my goodness. Well, I kind of was feeling like, ooh, I'm tired. And I'm not sure why. It's not like I did a lot of stuff, and maybe that's the problem. Maybe I have not moved
Well, I
enough.
still got a lot of stuff on my list. I can handle it.
No, I don't want to do your list. I'm talking about my list because I can't do your stuff. That's you're anointed for that. I'm anointed for my things.
See how she got out of that? She wiggled out of that.
I didn't wiggle. I put the word on
He
it.
was gone.
Look here, our producer
Gone.
got her thumbs up. That's right. Come on. Got my own thing
Well,
going.
I'm remember that.
But I will help you. If you need my help, I will help you. But I think you are more than able, more than capable to do all that you need to do.
See how they do it, brothers? They
So-
say they set us up. They do that, and then we come out all hype, you know. But really, they just
Trying to get you to let it go.
yeah.
All right, guys. Well, welcome again back to Launch. As you know, Newt and I, we love to talk about marriage. That's our ministry.
That's why Adam ate that apple. I'm just-
He did. He ate it after she did. We talk about marriage because
That's what they do to you, bro. They make you do stuff.
he's talking about another side of marriage. That, you know, this is y'all. This is Dr. Newt. You know him. But anyway, talking about marriage, just trying to share with you. We had actually 3 or 4 parts of a conference we did, and we were trying to like break it apart because it was a one all day conference, or not an all day, a one time conference. And so we're breaking it in pieces just to share a little bit. And we started 2 weeks ago with those fears that fears that speak. Is that the first one, Dr. Newt? No, it actually was the lies. Those
Lies in the
lies,
mind.
those things that lie to us, that make us believe things that are just not true about ourselves, about each other, about relationships, those things that we've accepted in our mind, and we kind of just carry them out. We live them out.
Right.
Stuff that talks to us. You know, those things that talk to you. And then we moved on and we talked, well, actually we shared a little bit about the divorce rate and how that is so large in our society. Newt gave you some statistics about the divorces in the United States, and it broke it down. Oh, he's actually posting it now where it talks about locations. Oh, okay. Where it talks about the location of where the most divorces are. The South had the highest divorces, which is kind of strange because I would think those Southern families would stay together more. Hi, Kyle. Happy Monday to you too. But yeah, so nonetheless, we talked about the divorce rates, and then we went on and talked about we had some statistics from a bunch of divorce lawyers who specialize in divorces, and we shared with you all of those different things that really.
Oh, so you're not gonna share that.
Oh, we can share it. Go ahead.
That's why I put it.
Oh, well, go ahead and put them there. You go
You're,
ahead. And do
you're
it.
anointed to do
Do you see what happens in marriage? They try to take your words and put it back on you. No, that's your area. That's your area. So go ahead, babe. You share stats.
So some of the stats were that 2.9, almost 3 out of every 1,000 people in the U.S. are divorced. So there's like over 1 million divorces. These were 2018 stats, not 2020, 2018, because we did the conference last year, I believe.
Yeah.
And 42% of all marriages in the U.S. end in divorce. And that's down from 50%, like we told you before. But the reason is because millennials, the millennial generation, not as many of them are getting married as the Generation Xers and baby boomers or the generations before them. So that's some of the stats that we have for you.
Then there was some of the divorce, the list of reasons why, common reasons why people get divorced: cheating, communication problems, abuse, and physical or emotional, or any kind of abuse. We talked about the ABCs of.
You guys remember what the ABCs are?
Tell them what the ABCs are.
ABCs, abuse and cheating. So AB for abuse, any type of abuse that could be going on, physical, mental, any of that going on. And then we even extended that into abusive substances.
Because that definitely causes some problems with relationships.
That is another, it's another idol, if you will. So it's kind of put in between you and your spouse. And then we talked about the cheating piece. So that's what we call the ABCs.
Yeah. The other one is financial issues. We know we argue over money. I mean, people argue over money. I'm not saying we argue over money, but people argue over money. Money is
It's a stress
it's
point.
a stress
Yeah,
point.
it's a stress
Absolutely. Also about intimacy, lack of intimacy, not necessarily just sexual, being together sexually,
Right.
but even having that intimate relationship and being able to talk and see into each other, because that's what
Communication.
intimacy is. Into me, you see. Sexual problems is another thing. One has one desire and the other has another expectation, and does not really always work together if you haven't established something, falling out of love, boredom, being bored with your spouse.
So all of these reasons came from a conglomeration of divorce lawyers
Yes,
across
crazy.
the country, and these were the top 10 reasons they saw, and it was a report that they produced, and we just pulled them off of there.
Yeah,
So
religious and cultural differences.
right,
That's a big one too.
yeah, I think that cultural difference is gigantic.
Yeah.
Gigantic. Because culture is just a way of life,
Mhm.
So it's they're not just talking about like whether you're Muslim or
Right.
or Christian, or whether you're from, I don't know, Nigeria
Right.
or Ohio. They're not talking, it's
Not just that
yeah,
culture,
it's,
right?
it's your way of life,
Mhm.
what you were brought under.
Which we're going to talk about tonight.
Right. So
Definitely.
those things are really, really key.
Mhm. Yes, culture can definitely look a little deeper than somebody's skin color. It
Right.
means your whole family, neighborhood,
Right.
the culture
Right.
in your house.
Right. And that could be next door. You could live
It
right
could.
next door to each other,
Yeah.
or growing up and have two separate cultures.
Two separate cultures, for sure.
Two separate types of demands or expectations.
Mhm.
And whenever you misplace your expectations, you disappoint them, then you're going to be disappointed.
Mhm.
So
The other one is issues with raising children. If you guys haven't agreed, especially if you are coming in the relationship and there's two, you're bringing yours, he's bringing his kids, and you're bringing your
blended
kids.
families.
That blended family, man, that blended family gets hit
Right.
a lot. And in our society where many more people are having children before marriage, blended family numbers are increasing.
Right.
So many more.
And it's not even just if those children will be raised in the house together.
Mhm.
So, for instance, say that the husband has other children,
Mhm.
right? And they might come to the house, I don't know, once every few months or so. But the fact that he has another child, there's kind of an allegiance or a tie, a bond, and so those things affect relationships and how things go within the house. So those have to be talked about.
Yeah, you've got to have something established, and then you have to be willing to accept that, hey, the situation may be a little bit different. I know I'm here with mine, and he has his some here, but there's some elsewhere too. We also have to consider, I'm not really sure about what's happening in that household as well.
Right.
So I have to be considerate,
Right.
And
not get in the way of
Not
those
get in the way.
relationships, allow them to organically,
Yes.
develop. There's a lot to it, whole lot to
A
it. And
lot.
then you got there was another partner,
Right.
someone else, who either a woman who had the baby or a man, so
Outside, you're right.
So how is your spouse not going to deal with them
Right.
now that you're married? So all those things kind of come in together.
And that's like a
Around the
big
child.
deal right
Right.
there. That's huge.
Right.
And we learned that while going in our relationship. We didn't have all the answers when we came into it. Because you think, oh, it's all going to be great and gravy, but you find out that you have got to grow into that family unit
Right.
to be who you're supposed to be as a family.
And a lot of these things, just to kind of throw it out there, we don't talk about at church. We kind of avoid those things in our church settings. And sometimes when we get into settings with one another outside the church, we kind of talk around them, or we talk in blames rather than in ownership, in solution fasting. So that's why we're kind of bringing it up to you tonight.
Addiction is another one which is already in the ABCs.
Right.
And then the differences in expectations or lack of partnership.
Right.
So, and that's another huge one.
Right.
You have an idea of what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about that last week, those fears that speak, it's the way you see it. It's supposed to happen like this. And if it doesn't, then you start to feel like you're crumbling. Things
Right.
ain't going to work right. and you start to think that there's no way to fix the relationship, but there is.
So I can tell you even a subtle one that's actually positive. It's not even negative, but it came so full with us. So I was always really career driven, and I was going to do whatever that we needed to do. I had a stint in life before I married Kim that I just wasn't really productive. And then when we got married, a lot of doors opened and opportunities opened, and I got super productive. Went back and got my master's, my doctorate, different jobs, get certifications and things coming along. So I was on the computer a lot. I was studying a lot, where I was working a lot. And so, I'm thinking, that I'm doing something for the family. Kim's expectation was, well, what about me? Time with me. So there was often and still, even now and again.
That's more now.
Back and forth with that.
Yeah, that's definitely more. That's definitely more now. Not when the kids were growing up, because we were so busy, and I was just as busy. I worked and was going to school as well. So that didn't happen as much when the kids were there. Plus, we were always together doing something. But once all the kids left, once they were all gone, and then it's just us two. Now it's like, okay, we have to make sure we have that time together.
Right.
And whether or not it's, as much or as often as I want, or as often as he wants, we had to come to some kind of agreement, because whatever you don't work on, that's just it. It doesn't get worked on. So what happens to it? It gets buried. Exactly. You bury it. So those are things that I'm big on, making sure that we have that time set aside, make sure we do those things together, but not when the kids were growing up. I didn't need that because we were already so busy. Let's see. Last week we talked about the lies in the mind.
2 weeks.
2 weeks ago. Oh yeah, we're done with the lies in the mind.
So 2 weeks ago we kind of talked about lies in the mind, which kind of first started out. We said that there are basically 3 categories that can cause your marriage or any relationship to grow apart rather than grow together and possibly end in divorce. So we were saying these are some of the things, some of the large buckets that you need to pay attention to in order to keep your ties strong to one another. And the 3 of them that we talked about were, well, we didn't talk about the third one. We're going to talk about it today. But lies in the mind was the first one. A couple of weeks we talked about, and then fears that speak. So when we talked about lies in the mind, we gave it a definition. So let me just go ahead and share the screen. That way we don't have to keep saying it and you not knowing what we're talking about. So give me a second to get this screen up here. Let me get this in presentation mode. All right. So when we talked about lies in the mind, this was the definition we gave it. We said that those were things that you were taught or that you experienced, in your rearing as you were coming up, and you grew to accept those things about marriage. Someone either taught them, you saw them, you interpreted them some kind of way, and you began to accept them. So those things were not necessarily true, is what we were saying to you. And then we gave you a list of some of those, and we went through each of them. So we won't go through all of them again tonight. But these were some of the things that we called lies in the mind.
Things that lie to you.
Right, things that lie to you. So, they were lies that you accepted.
And you believed them. And they affect your relationship. They affect your marriage now, and they affect any other relationship that you have, when you have those things from the past that are in your head.
Right. So that's where we started. And we said to you that as we finished that topic up, or that section, we said, listen, the issue is that we accept that lies in the mind are in play, and that we failed to face them and didn't know that we could change them. That's how those lies in the mind take control of us, because we accept them, we fail to face them, and we didn't know that we could change them.
Right. So we can go right to the fears that speak, which we talked about last week. And in the fears that speak, some of the things that we said we were missing is, let's give the definition of fears that speak, or things that cause apprehensions or reservations from being totally transparent and vulnerable. The things that cause apprehensions or reservations from being transparent and vulnerable. And some of those things are that we lose our power as a person, that financially we feel like we're going to be taken advantage of, and those we talked about that last week. That was Newt, feeling he was going to be taken advantage of. My thing was I felt like I was going to lose my power as a person to be able to say what I wanted for me.
Right.
The other thing was you can't maintain a new relationship feeling like you weren't capable.
Right.
And then me feeling like I was going to be belittled in the relationship. And it's so interesting. And those things that were in my mind came over in this relationship. And those are the things that I actually felt that was going to happen. And it's crazy because you think about that before you don't think about that before you get married.
Right.
It's once you get married. Had you had known it, you could have addressed it, before you actually got married. You could have talked about it in the relationship.
So the point is that all these things are kind of hidden. They're not overt. They're kind of under the cover. And that's why on the picture on the slide, you can see we have a person kind of whispering in the ear. Mm-hmm. So they're quiet, they're subtle, but they're in your mind, they're in your mind, they're there. But so inside your ear, inside your head, they're a megaphone. They're screaming out loud, and because of that, that's what you act on. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what's driving your decisions. It's kind of what's driving choices you're making and how you're interacting in those relationships.
Okay, so we reviewed. Now we're going to move on to today, which is called hidden influences.
So again, we got to say this, because it's not in the middle, right? You got to say that.
I think we said it, but go ahead.
So because we want to drive this point home. The reason why lies in the mind and fears to speak affect us so much is because we fail to face them, mm-hmm. and we didn't even know that we could make a change. So we trying to drive that home for you. You got to face them, and you get to change it.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
that's true.
So hidden influences, right? Is that where we are today?
We are on hidden influences.
Okay.
Let's talk about what they are. Hidden influences are things that have conditioned our choices and impact our actions.
Right. So they're hidden.
Yeah.
So what's hidden mean?
You can't see them.
They're hiding on purpose. They're under the cover, like the little cat. See the cat in the picture? They're under the cover, kind of peeking out at you, glaring out at you on purpose. And an influence is something that is impacting you. Influence from the inside, it is influential. It is contagious, fluid, like inside of you, causing a change.
Yeah.
In some capacity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those things, just like the words say, conditioned our choices.
Right.
So conditioned is a very important word. We chose these words, on purpose. Because when something's conditioned, it's hard to, you don't just turn the switch off. Mm-hmm. You have to unlearn it.
Yeah, and marrying somebody just because, you love them. You feel like the relationship makes you feel good. You feel happy.
Right.
That does not take away those things that you grew up with. That does not take away those things you've been conditioned with. You bring them with you. You just may not show the other person them yet. They have not seen the real you. They've seen your representative. They've seen part of you, the part that you showed to them. Right. But later on in the relationship, those things that you've been conditioned with, those influences are showing up in the relationship.
Right. I would even go as far as to say, Kim, that sometimes we don't even know.
You don't know.
We just kind of we don't even know. And that's where I think that word conditioned comes in. It's now a part of us. Mm-hmm. When you're conditioned to do something, it's automatic. Mm-hmm. It's an unconscious reflex type thing, and when we find ourselves in the middle of a situation, we don't even know why. Mm-hmm. That's why it's so much work. That's why we're trying to expose them to you so you can say, look at yourself, because I can't control Kim.
Right.
I got this thing, and I know we got to get through these, but I have this thing, I call it the 99 and 1% principle. So the 99 and 1 deserves 100 is what I call it. So if 99% of what happens to you has nothing to do with you, you didn't do it yourself, someone else did it, someone's doing something to you, and that 1% of what's taking place is in your control or something that you set in motion, that 1% deserves 100% of your attention.
Yeah.
Because that's the one thing that you can change, you can impact. And that's what we're trying to say with these three principles today: lies in the mind, fears that speak, and hidden influences. that might be, it's probably more than
Right.
1%,
It
but
could be.
that's where you need to place your attention, so
Mhm.
you can relate better with your partner.
And pay attention to what it is that your spouse is saying. If your spouse is constantly repeating something to you about something you do, you cannot pretend you don't hear that.
Right.
You have got to listen to that because that's got some kind of condition to it. It's got something to do with what you think, believe, or feel about yourself or what you've been raised in. You definitely have to pay attention to that. Why is this so important? Why are we taking so much time talking about divorces and relationships? Because we don't want to see them, because we were almost there. And these are the things that we had to go through to help ourselves to come up to where we are today. We don't want to see failed relationships. So we're sharing these things with you so you pay attention to those little things that you don't feel are as important. They really are more important than you'd like to admit. They are very important. So the first thing is how we were raised. I watched this video on TD Jakes, and I wish I could have shared it today. I'll probably share a little bit next week, where he and his wife talk about when he married her mother, her aunt, and all of the people that helped raise her. Not necessarily wanting them to be in your house, but you brought that person who was molded, taught, trained, prepared by this and that person. They looked at these people as their example.
Right.
When he married her, she didn't bring the people, but she brought what they taught her into that relationship.
Right.
And that's the same thing
Right.
that I did.
Right.
So for my household, I grew up with a single mother. My mother was young when she had me, very young. I believe she got pregnant at 16, and I think she had me at 16. I'm not sure for sure. But nonetheless, she was still a child.
Mhm.
So imagine that relationship. Young mother, back in the 60s. I'm not talking about here in the 2000s where it's so common. I'm talking about 1965 when it was not common for a person that age to have a child. She hadn't. You know, I was born in 1965. I'm a little bit older than you. Okay.
No.
So anyway, that life, first of all, she had to be embarrassed. She had to be ashamed. She had to figure out how she was going to take care of me. She still had to go to school.
Right. There were no resources, no services.
You don't get them. The services that you guys have, the kids have today, they were not there.
Culture was different.
Culture was different. So the responsibility now fell on her parents. Her parent, who was now single but remarried. So now she's bringing a new child into a household. Listen to this. The boyfriend and her was just that, boy friend, because he was so young. He was just as young. So how was she going to take care of a child at that time and really raise the child the way, the child needed to be raised? So keep in mind, that's the household I came out of, that single parent situation where my mother was growing up and I was growing up with her. So we got more like sisterhood than we did mother and daughter. How about yours?
Oh, my family?
Yeah, your
I
family.
was listening to your story.
Well, I wanted to say how I was raised and say how you were raised, and we could talk about some of those things.
So, you want to try to get me a chop?
No, how it impacted our
I'm
relationship.
still scared of my mom.
You better be careful then.
Now, my mother and father, so I'm the youngest. Actually, my sisters are 6 years older
Can
and,
y'all
and
tell?
8 years older than me.
And he's the youngest.
So I'm the youngest by far and the only boy. So I'm spoiled in two ways.
Can y'all tell? I just have to interrupt that again.
So my dad was when I was born, and my mom was 31. So he was robbing the cradle. He got young. So long story short, they were married, until my dad died. Like just if he didn't pass away, they'd still be married, obviously. So that's 50 some years they were married, and that's all I knew. Yeah, there was conflict in the house. There were arguments and things of that sort, but there was never a real serious mention of, divorce or splitting up. I remember a couple times it got a little tense. Well, one time in particular, it got a little tense. But my mom, she's like, well, y'all my kids. I can't take care of you by myself. So we need to figure this out and do this together. And that's what they did. So I've always had two parents. I've always had a strong male in my life by virtue of either my father or their friends, because they didn't bring just anyone into our house. It was a strong community type network. And there was folks that they just didn't deal with, and they flat out said they wasn't dealing with them. And would tell them, no, you can't come in here, and that kind of stuff. So that was kind of what I saw. I saw that, I'm going to call it strained partnership, because I think there were still some communication issues because of the dispensation of the time and basically how men felt about women at that time. So
that was 1965 as well, if I may add.
When she was born. So, so I saw kind of that dichotomy. So Kim and I came from two very, very different.
Completely.
Another thing Kim didn't mention is she had a really strong nuclear, not family network. With aunts and grandmoms, and
uncles.
Yeah.
We had a really big family, and we were very close. We always got together for events and celebrations, and just it just happened, the first snow, the first rain. We just got together all the time and had something. So our family was always together.
Right.
Always together. And actually, we just moved back. They still do this. So, and my grandmother's no longer living, my mother's no longer living, but my other aunts and them they do this.
Right.
So that's the kind of family unit I came from. So I was used to being around each other, spending time together, talking, communicating. Even if you didn't get along, you disagreed, but you sat there and ate at that table together. So that's the family that I'm used to, that structure.
Right. So those things come to you. Why we're telling you this to tell the story is that so we married each other, which means we married that. So my family was more my mother, my father, and my sisters and I was a nucleus right here. And yes, we went to family reunions and visited our aunts and uncles and cousins and stuff like that. But our family was kind of over here, by itself. It was a little different than how Kim's family was. Like they intertwined their lives all the time. Ours were a little different. So when we got together, there were some differences. Differences,
right.
that well, why this or why that? And those things had to be.
And my family was always coming over. Like I always had cookouts in the yard. Because I just was carrying it on.
Right.
So we had that type of relationship. So that came in the marriage, as we said.
Right.
So I had to and not that he had a problem with my family, never to me, and not that I had a problem with his family, but we now had to figure out how we were going to have our family.
Right.
What from my family were we going to keep in this relationship that would not offend him or affect him incorrectly, but that would work for what we were trying to build?
Well, or that wouldn't cause issues in our marriage. So, like for instance, if you came from a family network that was tight like that, and your husband or wife didn't, so now you have your family in your affairs.
Yeah.
Because that's how you were raised. There's no, that's your culture. It's fine. But if your husband and your wife didn't come that way, then there's going to be some conflict there. Like, why are they in our affairs? Why are they even part of this discussion? They don't wash my drawers. It's just, there's kind of, thing that's going on in your head, so those are things that could cause conflict. That didn't happen.
I was going to say that didn't happen in my family.
With us. But that was because of Kim, it's just she
right, because I know how our relationship was here.
Right.
But they were engaged
in
whatever fun things or activities and things that I was doing. Where Newt's family was somewhere else, and if you saw them, you drove to where they were, and there were three of them there, or maybe one person there, or two people there, and that was pretty much it. Everybody was nice and sweet. They were quiet. They were more educated. They were very more professional. So it was always very quiet, and it was totally different from mine, because my family was turn up the music. let's pull out the barbecue. We're going to dance and have a great, time. It was two different worlds. Nothing wrong with either. So get this. There's nothing wrong with either of those worlds. But when you get married, you have to figure out what part of that world belongs here.
Right. Because you don't want the conflict. That's my point.
Yeah.
So we're just giving ours as examples. But what we're saying is those differences can cause conflicts in
Huge
your
conflicts.
house.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to understand them, because those are your influence. You've been conditioned that way.
Right.
You don't see anything wrong with it.
Mhm.
We every now and again we watch those reality shows, right? And there's one, I don't know what it is, but the girl's mother is in their house,
Constantly in their
yeah,
business.
and like coming in their bedroom and stuff like that. Like that would be like huge,
Yeah.
a huge foul for me. Like,
Yeah, that would never happen.
So that and she's like, well, that's my mom,
Yeah.
kind of thing, So those are the things, how we're raised, and it is a big influence for us.
Definitely huge.
Right.
Past failures, things that happened in your past. So we talked about all the things that you bring to your relationship. Now, keep in mind, these are layers. So layer 1 is how you were raised. Layer 2 is, okay, you came with some failures in that relationship and you're bringing them with you. Do you see? This is why this is baggage. This is what this is. You bring those past failures. Newt and I both were married before. So here comes those past failures, those hurts, things that happen. And even as far back in our childhood, those things that hurt us, that made us on edge or made us very protective of ourselves.
That's the issue right there.
Yes.
So I'm gonna give you an example that you probably won't even catch. So I started college. I had a scholarship, and I went to college. I did well. It's a 3-2 program, so it'd be 3 years in one school, 2 years in another. So I killed the first school. I mean, I did the 3 years in 2. Then I transferred to the other university, which was a larger PWI, was a predominantly white institution, and the culture was different, and I wasn't ready. And I got caught in the party scene and saw all kinds of opportunity.
Showing off.
Right. And lost the scholarship, right? That set off a trigger of events in my life, because, I didn't ask for help. I didn't know how to communicate, some other things going on. Long story short, that was a huge failure in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And that failure affected my psyche, how I felt about myself. What I thought I could accomplish from there, what I would share, who I would let in. That past failure had a gigantic influence and impact on all of my actions,
Mm-hmm.
especially my relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So we're saying that, so not until I started sharing that whole story with Kim, bit by bit, piece by piece, and I'm sharing it, and she's not changing. Like, I'm looking at her, she's not changing. Like it's a big deal, not until then that I started to be able to be okay with myself,
Mm-hmm.
and address those failures and look forward, to what's next.
Right. Same thing with me. I came in with so many, just stuff that happened in my childhood, of course. And mind you, like I said, I was growing up while my mom was growing up. So there was really never no mothery type daughtery thing. So that means I didn't know how to do that either. Okay. So I was growing up in a sisterhood, but my aunts were kind of like more motherly to me, and my grandma. So nothing wrong with that if your family is that way. However, you start to feel a certain way about yourself. And when you have children, now it's like, how do I do this? Because you don't know how. You don't know how. So I'm bringing all of that, a failed marriage as well, into this relationship. And I'm not worried about what Newt didn't do right in his past. I'm trying to make sure that I get my stuff together so that I don't have a repeat failure.
Mm-hmm.
So these are layers. These things are layering on. The next thing are habits.
Yeah.
Things that you're used to doing and getting away with.
So I like that you said that,
Mm-hmm.
because when people sit here habits, first they think, smoking, drinking, things of that
Not
sort.
just that,
But she said things that you're used to doing.
and getting away with.
Right.
And nobody can do anything about it.
Right.
You felt like that.
And some of them are not even, negative things or illegal things.
Mm-hmm.
They're just patterns
Patterns.
that you put in place in your life.
Mhm.
You know, it's like, well, don't let your left hand know what your right hand's doing.
Yeah,
You
that's a habit.
You know, it's a habit to kind of
Keep everybody out.
Or whatever I was doing, I was already figuring out how I was going to compartmentalize it and push it over here
Mm-hmm.
so that I can keep that to myself. You know, wasn't like I was not sharing my funds or anything like that. That wasn't the issue.
Right.
It was like I didn't want anyone to know what was going on with me.
Right. And communication, I don't know if you guys remember him saying that there wasn't a whole lot of communication in his family
Right.
nucleus, where mine, we talked about everything.
Right.
I mean, everything. Everybody knew when somebody had a new boyfriend. Everybody knew when somebody was going here. Everybody knew they got a new dress. I mean, everything. Where in Newt's family, everything was kept here. You keep it here.
Right.
And so he was not big
Just
at
as long as you
communicating.
perform.
Right, as long as you perform,
Yeah.
you're good. So communicating, he was good at communicating, but not necessarily about his own feelings. He was good to sit down and talk. He'll talk with you. He'll talk with you all day. All day.
About
The
your
kids would
stuff.
say- about your stuff. The kids would say he'll talk with you all day because we have family meetings. But he was not good at communicating his own feelings. So those habits of keeping this here and this here, I'm good, happened.
Right.
Where me, I'm like, no, you're not. What's that? You know, so I'm all about, no, let's talk about it.
Right.
Where my thing was, that was on the opposite of his, was that I wanted to talk about everything, and everything didn't always need to be talked about. So you see how that could be like a enemy towards each other.
Right.
We had to figure out what worked.
Or I'll tell you one of Kim's habits was she was a fixer.
Oh, yes.
She was the oldest of all her siblings.
Yeah.
And had to do a lot of things herself. So and had some, you know, some bad spots in her childhood. So she was always looking out for the underdog, wanting to help, wanting to fix.
Always.
And that became a habit.
Mhm.
You know, so now if you do that, you know, eventually you're gonna have more weight on you than you're built to carry. You know, so now where does that fall off? Where does
Right.
that happen? It happens here, you know, in the house and in the
So
relationships.
true. That's a good one, because I mean, I would literally spend all my money on somebody who didn't have something. I mean, I was that. So that was definitely a habit, not a good habit, but that was a habit of mine. Other thing were past relationships, which we talked about, past failures. So our past relationships, our previous spouses
Yeah.
before, and our previous relationships with people.
Right. I was going to say
Yeah.
relationships. So another thing, and I don't want to sound like I'm church bashing, but one of the things that's not talked a lot about in church are relationships. And I don't understand why, because you cannot live in this world without them.
Mhm.
It's like the one thing that's unavoidable. It's like breathing. I mean,
You're gonna talk with people.
there's going to be a relationship somewhere, you know, on some capacity. You know, how you handle those things, you know, totally determines your productivity and your ability to be, you know, successful and productive in everything you're doing. But those past relationships that we had, especially our failed marriages coming together, man, there's all kinds of defenses.
Yes, indeed.
There's all kinds of, you know, you make notes in your head,
Yeah.
you know, and whenever something looks like, smells like, tastes like, you see a little spark,
Yeah, of that past thing.
boom, you're right there mentally,
Mhm.
you know, and that hidden influence, because you're not even thinking about that person. That person's not in your mind,
Right.
you know, but what happened is,
Mhm.
and it's a hidden influence, and bang, all of a sudden it shows up,
Mhm.
and now you got a conflict. Or you may not say anything,
Right.
but now I'm looking at you, you know,
Right.
side-eyed. You know,
Right.
you know,
Right.
I'm looking out the side, you know, because my mind is somewhere else.
Took you back to a hurt.
Yes.
Definitely. The next one
And we
is
blame the person.
Then you blame, yeah,
And
like,
I'm blaming her.
for something I don't know. And I'm blaming him
Yeah.
for something. He had no idea of everything that happened in my life. As a matter of fact, there are things that I hadn't shared with him until this one day I just blurted something out, and it shocked me because it had been suppressed for so long that I was like, whoa, I didn't even realize that was in there.
Right.
Something that happened to me in my childhood. So that's what I'm saying. You don't ever get to show who everything about yourself.
Right.
But there are influences that are on board that have you conditioned to behave and act a certain way, and they will tear up your relationship.
Yeah.
If you do not address them,
Right.
you cannot ignore them and act like that. You can't use that saying, oh, that's just how she is, or that's just how he is. No, that's not. You have to deal with that.
Right.
Another thing is family expectations and pressures. That's a big one.
Yeah. So I talked about my family. Like, and listen, I love my family, and I don't think this was a negative thing. In fact, I know it wasn't. Or I just wouldn't sit where I'm sitting in some of the rooms I get to sit in today. But my family had, especially my father, was very driven about you accomplishing something. He was an educator. It was about education. My mom would say, I don't care if you're a street sweeper, you be the best street sweeper that there ever was.
You just have to be the best.
Right. So there was that drive in my household to be the best. There wasn't room for error. And if it was, you get back up and you keep it moving, but you got to keep going forward.
Right.
So those expectations in my family and those pressures were inside me, and they conditioned me. So now when I have my family, what do you think I'm doing?
He's driving. You're trying to make sure they do well.
Right. But here's the deal. I'm driving from my perspective. What I think you should be going and doing.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying I was telling any of the children, if you want to be a doctor, no, you got to be a lawyer. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
What I was saying is that there's a way that things are done, and you need to do it that way. You need to go in that direction. But if they were an artist, then maybe they didn't be going that direction. Maybe going another.
But education was always the drive for
because that was the drive and expectation that I was conditioned under.
And not that we didn't think, not that we didn't appreciate education in my family. The difference was it looked differently in my household.
Right.
So for mine, the family expectations, the women in my family were very strong and tough, and were hard workers, fixers, and they could take care of the whole family with a quiet man in the house. Let me just say that. Not that his support wasn't there, but the women were very strong. And so it was an expectation for me to be strong. And there was an expectation for me not to crumble, but for me to stand up. And no matter how hot the room got or how much pressure I was under, I had to still be able to stand up. That was the type of family expectation and pressure I had. So there was no such thing as crumbling. And when you crumbled, oh no, get it together, suck it up, pretty much. That right there is a hidden influence that would condition me. So I didn't know how to soften myself. And the truth is, if I can just be honest with you, I didn't find myself until we went to San Diego, where there was nobody around me where I could really be who I really was from the inside, a person who just wants everyone to be happy. But I didn't know that because I was constantly performing based upon those things that I was conditioned to.
Right.
And I brought it in my relationship.
And I gotta say this, the flip can happen. So we talked about expectations from the strength side. So you could come from, or your partner could come from a family that had expectations for the weakness side, meaning they just kind of let life happen.
Yeah, that's true.
It's just, and I mean, I don't want to, give some details, but I think you get the picture. So if your wife or husband is coming from that type of background, laissez-faire, whatever happens,
no worries, no worries,
or blaming the world for everything that they're not doing, then you need to understand that is a hidden influence that's conditioned them, right? All their choices and actions are going to come from that vantage point,
right?
And you have to
better talk about.
Yeah, you need to know, because somebody's gonna have to compensate for that lack of responsibility. So
that push.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this works both ways. This works both ways.
Whatever those expectations and pressures are, and then we talk about hiding spots, those areas, those little triggers, those things that they don't see until that spot has been exposed, and it's almost like a person who you think, oh my goodness, I would never think he would do that or she would do that. Those things then show up when you have now been put on, spotlight been put on you.
Right.
And now they're really seeing the whole you. I think in our book, Luke talks about literally being naked before people and before the world because of the things he refused to deal with in his past. That's exactly what happens. That hiding spot now literally has you standing in front of people with egg on your face or whatever. Like, oh my God, now they really see me. So you want to make sure that they see who you really are before something like that happens.
And everyone's not going to have that capacity because hiding spots are just that. You're hiding in them, and you don't know you're hiding.
That's good.
They now become your culture, your everyday reality, and everyone can see it. Like everyone's looking at it like, what's wrong with them?
Right.
Right. And here's what kind of happens is when that exposure takes place, you don't even kind of realize that it's an exposure. And you're standing there, how I wrote in the book is you're standing there kind of like naked in the middle of a field, like totally exposed, no shelter, no anything. Everyone is looking at you, right? Seeing you. My point is this, the hiding spots have conditioned you such that you're actually hiding from yourself.
Absolutely.
And everything around you. And when you get into your marriage or into a relationship, you're viewing everything in reality from that false place that you're hidden yourself. So that's why it's important for you to get honest.
Yeah.
And we talk about that in the book, Honest, Open, and Willing. So that's why it's important for you to get honest about those things and address them before exposure happens.
Yes.
Because exposure is either going to be like a sheet taken off and you're just exposed in the middle of the field butt naked, or it's going to be like for me, it was my light side and my dark side hit together, and whenever positive and negative collide, you're going to get an explosion. And boom, my life exploded in a bad way. Right? So, and a lot of people can't come back from that.
Right.
I was just blessed. So nevertheless, those hiding spots.
Deal with them.
Deal with them.
Deal with the stuff that is hidden and that you have been conditioned to live under. So again, accepting, Newt loves to touch this part.
The reason why lies in the mind, fears that speak, and the hidden influences are impacting you is because
you failed to face them.
Yep.
You didn't know, or you didn't want to make those changes.
That you could make the changes. So I know we weren't saying a lot of cliche stuff today,
and we're not going to,
and all those kind of things. We just kind of talk to you, but we're hoping that this stuff kind of digs in your mind a little bit and it makes you think about it, so you can do that self-work. There's a friend of mine, John the Phoenix, on Facebook, and he says self-work is the best work. So that's what we're going to leave you today.
Yes. All right, guys, thank you so much for stopping by again. Keep in mind that you can work on these things now. Work on those things in your relationship right now.
Yes.
Don't wait until you are exposed. Don't wait till it's a problem. Talk to your mate. Talk to them. Tell them about you, your household, your lifestyle, things that you agree with, things that you believe. And once you address those things, then you can come on some common ground in your marriage.
Right. And you're getting better.
Yes, you get better. Exactly.
It's a cycle. The whole it doesn't stop.
Exactly. You're getting better. All right. So that's it, friends. We just hope you guys just pay close attention to your relationships. I don't want to see any marriages dissolve, especially when you can save them.
Yes. So we hope you grab some more so you can take with you to educate yourself,
motivate yourself,
and help yourself grow. And as usual, my friends, make it a great day or not, because that choice is always yours. We love you. See you next week.
Bye-bye, guys.
Made a way. Don't know how, but you did it. Made a way. Standing here, not knowing how we'll get through this test, but holding on to faith you know best. Nothing can catch you by surprise. You got this figured out, and you're watching us now. And when it looks as if we can't win, you wrap us in your arms and step in. And everything we need you supply. You got this in control, and now we know that you made our way. When our backs were against the wall, and it looked as if it was over, you made our way. And we're standing here only because you made our way. You made a way. And now we're here, looking back on where we've come from. Because of you and nothing we've done to deserve the love and mercy you showed. But your grace was strong enough to pick us up, and you made our way. When our backs were against the wall, and it looked as if it was over, Lord, you made a way. And we're standing here only because you made a way. When our backs were against the wall, and it looked as if it was
You are tuned in to that praisey station, Praise.fm, where we get our praise on. 24 hours, 7 days a week.